I'm almost pretty much on time, 16:55, 4:55 p.m. How about that? I'm getting better. Tomorrow might be a little bit more tricky, but we'll see what we can do. Hope you're enjoying this month's readings so far. They're a little bit different, and if I'm going to be honest, I prefer last month's readings to this month's, but then again, all the readings contain some good information, and oftentimes what it is, it's what we make of it. Remember I said a while ago that Reverend Jesse will give a talk, and then people will come up to him afterwards and they would congratulate him and say, wow, you said exactly just what I was thinking. And they would tell him what he'd said. And sometimes he hadn't even said that. Or they would explain what they got out of the talk, and he'd never intended it to be that way. Why? Because we all see the world through a different filter. And today's reading is called Creating by Design. And that's really what Science of Mind is all about. Creating by design. In other words, it's deliberate creation, if you like. Therefore, this is real basic stuff. It's kind of cool. Today's been a pretty good day. I actually went out for lunch today. I don't know why I get chatty, because that's really not my style. But went out for lunch today. We very seldom go out to lunch. Usually it's once a week at Jason's Deli after our Toastmasters meeting. And even that can sometimes devolve into a business meeting. But today it was just my wife and I. We went out. We went to this nice little Chinese restaurant called Shanghai Bistro, which is like 5 minutes drive max from where we live. And it's a real nice place, very reasonably priced. Food is good. And we just the two of us, we had a good time. And now to get on with what I'm supposed to be doing, which is doing my reading. The first quote is someone from whom I'm sure every single one of you has heard. This person says, make visible what without you might never have been seen. Make visible what without you might never have been seen. And that was, guess who? Oprah Winfrey. Ernest Holmes, of course, he was a bit more obtuse. He says, there's no stagnation in spirit, nor should there be any in our idea of spirituality. To be spiritual is to create. The spirit's alive, conscious, aware, and active. And that's from the Science of Mind textbook, page 67, paragraph 2. And I don't know how all of you look at life. Obviously, I mean, I get feedback from different people from right across the spectrum, from some people who are relatively conservative Christians to people who would define themselves as agnostic, maybe even somebody define themselves as atheist. But of course, that's all relative. It depends what you mean by that, because as I said, we all see life through different filters. Today's reading, though, is focused on what we can do as opposed to what we can't do. And Reverend Ryan says, I know a lot of us have art scars. I can relate to this. Memories of those times when we may have received less than enthusiastic responses to our stick family drawings. When we examine the topic of creativity, our minds often focus on our perceived lack of artistic skill. Yes, creativity can describe Picasso-like skills, but it encompasses so much more. This is a good reading. Creativity is the courageous decision to say yes to life. Each day as we breathe in and as we breathe out and go about our daily responsibilities and interactions, we focus on both the mundane and the extraordinary. And we behave as amazing vessels of creativity. When we do this, we create either by design or by default. This is both the good news and perhaps sometimes the not so good news. Too often we slide by in default mode, like driving somewhere and wondering how we got there. Default mode isn't always a bad thing. We do many things from this patterned space, like brushing our teeth, stopping at red lights. That's sometimes questionable these days, right? However, creating by design is a different feel. It in an intentional, mindful, and proactive state of being, we have the ability to use the power of creativity. Now, I may be dating myself, says Reverend Ryan, but this reminds me of my light, bright days. Remember that amazing little contraption where you stick a piece of paper behind a lighted grid and arrange colorful plastic pegs to create your design. The best part was when you were done with one creation, well, you could just remove the paper and create another one. This is creativity, making conscious choices about where to put our colorful pegs. What will you choose to create with yours? Well, I'm not familiar with what she's talking about here. Obviously, I know what it says, but I'm not familiar with light, bright, L-I-T-E, new word B-R-I-T-E. I'm not familiar with it, but I do understand what she's saying. Is it a great analogy? I don't know. Maybe not, because I didn't know what it was. But then again, Reverend Ryan's speaking primarily to an American audience. But I do know, for myself, for one, my wife, Mom, it's not as much true about my wife. For one, I didn't grow up here in the US. And I know some people who listen to my readings didn't grow up here in the US, so we're not familiar with it. So take your pick. What I do remember is this: I only ever got one prize for art, quote unquote, at school, and that was for drawing a woolly mammoth. Why? Because I was interested in prehistoric times, and I like woolly mammoths. I like elephants, and obviously going further back in time, I like woolly mammoths. I did a good job of it, but no, I'm not a great artist in the painting and sketching sense, but I'm pretty good with poetry. And I don't, although she doesn't mention it here, let's face it, art encompasses so many different things. It encompasses an engineer who's actually coming up with a new design or a new idea for a bridge, for instance. I don't know if some of you have ever seen it. Tacoma is up there in the Pacific Northwest near Seattle. I'm sure you know that. There's a big gorge there. And there was a bridge built across the gorge. I think it was either the late 1920s or 1930s, one or the other. This is famous if you went to engineering school like I did. And they built this bridge across the gorge. Well, it wasn't a good design. Why? Because what they forgot was that the gorge attracted a wind, and the wind whistled down through the gorge because that's what it was designed to do. It went through, and the wind coming down hit the sides of the bridge, and the sides of the bridge were solid. And because they were solid, the wind, being as powerful it was, started the bridge to move in motion like a violin string. And eventually, as the wind blew harder and kept going, the bridge started moving more and more in this direction until eventually it went beyond its design capacity and it came apart. Fortunately, nobody got killed or injured on it. They got off in time. Well, what did they do? They went back to the drawing board, and the next bridge had, guess what? It did not have solid sides so that the wind could actually go through. You know, it had lattice work on the sides. But that's just an example of design. But every single day we design something new. When you find a new way to do anything, it's pretty cool. If you're going in the garden and you're doing some garden work and you suddenly find a new way, an easier way to plant, that's creativity. And it's something that we all do every day in larger, small amounts. However, what we're talking about here in the sense of our lives is that not just that, but going beyond that, we're going to the thing that says it's done unto you as you believe. Now, it doesn't matter how it comes about, but it's a plain fact people have demonstrated often enough that if you consciously come up with an idea, a thought, and you put a lot of feeling around it, there's a really good chance that that or something very similar will actually manifest in your life. Now, if you want to look at it from a scientific point of view, you could say that in the quantum field, everything exists in a state of probability. We talked about this before. And then when consciousness focuses on it, it changes from being a probability, which is a waveform, it actually becomes a particle, and it actually comes into existence in the universe. Or if you want to look at it another way, you say there's the divine power out there, and the subconscious aspect of that divine power brings things into existence that you put there with a lot of feeling. It's the results the same. So it really doesn't matter. Bottom line is that we have the ability to be creative and bring things and attract things into our lives that we want. And there's been enough empirical evidence to suggest we can do this. And sages throughout the ages have talked about it, going back to Jesus and way beyond, saying it's done unto you as you believe. And that's really my summary of this reading today. It's done unto you as you believe. The affirmation: I am an amazing vessel for creativity. I am an amazing vessel for creativity. So let me know what you think about these readings. I got some feedback today from a friend of mine. I would love to hear your feedback. I think my number's in there somewhere, but I'll read it out to you. It's 832-271-0717. 832-271-0717. Text me. I would love to hear from you, because I'd love to know how you feel about these ratings and what we can do to improve them, and your suggestions, and we'll take them all in, because hey, we like what we do. And to prove that, Reverend Lisa will be on tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.-ish, reading from the Science of Mind textbook. Yeah, it may be a bit dry. However, she's interspersing it now with some little explanations to kind of spice it up a bit. But when you're reading a text like that, it's kind of hard to make it really, truly interesting. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is this, that tonight at 7 p.m. is what we call our soul session. I'm talking about 15th of May, 2024, 7 p.m. Central Time, USA, Canada, I think Mexico as well, will be our soul session. And our person coming on today, Reverend Lister, is a very interesting character. All you have to do is go to Creative Life Spiritual Center's Facebook page, and at 7 o'clock, it will come on live. She will be interviewed by Reverend Dr. Jesse Jennings, who's my leader and Reverend Lisa's leader, and our other minister, Reverend Katie Ross Brigatti, out there in California, also her leader. He will be interviewing her, and I can guarantee you this. I read parts of her bio. It's really interesting. Tune into that. Reverend Lisa tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Reverend Lisa tonight at 7 p.m. Hey, we're trying to provide things that help you to be more creative. How about that? So until next time, namaste.